did you put for your first skill that you ranked as most important?
I put, which I just didn't do, speaking or listening well, committed listening. And the reason I put that is because I feel like every other skill kind of hangs on that. If you aren't listening, it's not a conversation to begin with.
What were you?
I was gonna say, I agreed with Scott. That's exactly the one that I chose. Oh, I'm not looking at my paper though. I also chose that one though. Because I think that if you can't hear what other people are saying, then you don't have any grounds for communication. Like you don't know where they might be coming from. And I like this last part that says, be truly present with another person to hear his or her point of view and perspective. And perspective is something that's super important to me because that's what makes us able to collaborate better, I think, is if we're understanding where other people are coming from. That's hard to do.
So perspective, do you think that means like the context of what they're saying? Like is it the story behind the story? You're trying to understand that piece?
Sometimes I think about it more in like where they're coming from, like why they're saying what they're saying. So sometimes even just looking at the emotion behind what they're saying, you can read a little bit about why they say what they say. So I may be thinking like personally where they're coming from.
I'd like to pivot a little bit away from communication as the number one thing, and the reason I go back to the conversation that we had in our group about how you could have really excellent conversations and you could be with some super like-minded people and love each other and fill the room with joy, but number three to me seemed pretty non-negotiable, that you need to be able to determine the intention, and that those things, then you employ those other skills. It seems like all the rest of the skills follow that that intention. Once you've determined what the results and actions are aimed at, then you employ the other skills to achieve that.
I also chose that one for my number one.
Tell us more.
Exactly what you said, but we all chose the same goal, I can tell. A really awkward conversation. We all have the same goal. No, I just agreed with you. It was the idea of this is the aim, this is where we're going, whether you think about this is regional meeting number 3, and these are the non-negotiables, to establish those and then begin listening and stuff was what was really important.
I don't want to be contrary, but that's my goal. When I think about that, I go back to the committed listening. You can't even have that conversation about what's the intention unless you hear what the other people are saying, right? So you can't even establish an intention if you haven't heard what the other person's saying or what's, yeah.
But sometimes your intention is given to you.
Right.
Sometimes it's region number 3 or a PD on text complexity. So it's sort of established, and but you have to communicate that with each other. So maybe it's like a photo finish on those two.
That's right.
They're best friends.
Joe, what do you think?
I also chose determine our intention because I really think that is the crux move. Have you ever been in one of those committees that feels like they need to support students? Like the Elks need to support students but have no idea how to do that. And they're not even sure that's actually what they want to do, but they have some money to spend. And so then if you would just spend that time up front talking about what is our intention? Why are we here together? Why are we so carefully communicating but not getting anywhere? That can be a really frustrating place to be, no matter how many different strategies you employ to try and move forward. If there's no place to aim for, it's challenging to go anywhere.
I also agree with you. I don't know where I put that on my list because I have Jackie's list in front of me, but but I agree that your intention is important, especially since so many of us talked about a shared purpose as being something that was a positive experience. I feel like I would have ranked that high. But it's hard because I agree with what Scott says too. If you can't talk to each other, then it's hard to find a shared purpose if it's not given to you. And I think you're more committed if you've come up with a collaborative purpose.
I think that you hit on something that's really key is that, and why this conversation is difficult is because a lot of these are values that you need to and gender as a coach, they have to be a deep part of you in order for you to get the results that you want. So my number one was different from all of yours. It was be curious and ask questions. And I think that unless you're curious, you really can't determine your intention. Somebody's already determined that for you, or it was predetermined by the task. So this curiosity allows us to be creative around that task.
Yeah, I think that that's a really strong value, is having the curiosity piece. But I just wonder, there's times when curiosity, I've been in a group that just, we're curious to talk about this, but we talk all hour and never go anywhere. And so that's my, I guess I'm edgy about that idea.
This reminds me of that old teacher strategy or whatever it is, where you have different hats, and so you're like, you're the black hat, you question everything. You're the green hat, you get excited about everything or whatever. Like, depending on our roles when we enter, if you find that you can balance it out by wearing the curiosity hat, or by wearing the let me restate what you just said, or digging deeper, or refocus, that all of these are valuable. So it is a tough thing to rank.
I think that's, it goes into respecting differences. At a deep level, this isn't just saying that you respect differences, but really being able to talk to each other and use those different lenses to understand you. Thank you for bringing that up.
I like how you rephrase it.
What you, Kate, and Marianne are talking about is really making me curious about if what I would rank number one might be different depending on the situation or the people that I'm working with. And I don't know if that is the case, but that's something that your comment has like stirred me to continue thinking about. I actually chose a totally different one, so that's why this conversation is so cool. I chose the one that said, embrace the principle of equality, see others as having equal value. And when I was going through the ranking, I was having a really tough time trying to decide what is most important. And as I was trying to figure out how to do that, started with what is the most humanizing element. Like, if I can go in presupposing that everybody has something to contribute and I value everybody in the conversation, then I am more likely to do and embody some of those other things that we believe to be important, like committed listening and being curious and those kinds of things. So I thought that was foundational, like recognizing each other as humans and recognizing and believing positive intent and that we all have something to contribute. And if we do that, then we do all of these other things. And so that's why I chose that piece. I'm curious what some of our newbies to the group think.
I also chose that one for many of the reasons that you were talking about, just because it seemed like it was so foundational, and that once you have established that equality, all of the other principles seem to flow from that. You are committed listening, you are curious, you develop a shared vision. Maybe that's not true, but it seemed like until there was that level that the collaboration couldn't truly happen.
I appreciate that both of you talk about that foundational piece, because and it should maybe be no surprise that was also my number one. Weird that Jackie and I would have the same idea there. But one of the things that came up in the conversation with Diane was the idea of getting rid of the hierarchy piece. That in a really great collaborative situation, there isn't somebody who's like, but this is how it's going to be done because I'm the boss. It's more of these like shared visions, shared voices that are helping move things forward. And I think that that's a principle that has to be embraced before one can even maybe achieve a goal or start to listen to each other. That if I'm going into it knowing, I'm going to listen to you, but I think I'm better than you, then that's not really going to move anything forward at all. There's going to actually be a really large obstacle that we can never get to those other pieces of collaboration.
One thing I struggled in making that my number one was, could you still get to a shared vision? I mean, could you sit here and be, Brandon, we're equal, we're great, like I respect you, you respect me, but still get to having something accomplished or something come out of it? Was that challenging for either of you in making that your number one?